So, it's January 17th, 1916. The world is on the brink of World War I. Cars are still a luxury. And golf? Well, golf is kind of a mess. Tournaments are scattered everywhere, with no real structure. Prize money is inconsistent, and professional golfers are basically treated like second-class citizens compared to their rich country club counterparts. Then comes along a guy named Rodman Wanamaker. Before we get started, I'd like to do something fun for my subscribers. My goal is to reach over 1,000 subs, and I need your help to get there. To show my appreciation, I'm giving away $100 gift cards to 5 lucky subscribers. The random drawing will take place once we hit 1,500 subscribers, so make sure you subscribe, like, and comment me for your chance to win. Now, Wanamaker wasn't just a regular guy. He was a department store mogul who has probably never had to clean his own golf clubs in his life. However, he loves golf and he sees an opportunity. So, he invites some of the top golf professionals and amateurs to lunch at the famous Taplow Club inside the posh Hotel Martinique in New York City. But this isn't just any lunch, this is a meeting of the minds, where the future of professional golf is about to be decided between bites of roast beef and cigars. Of course, Wanamaker wasn't a professional golfer. He wasn't even a particularly great golfer. But what he did have is money, influence, and a knack for marketing. Most importantly, he had an idea. Why not create an official golf association to organize tournaments, standardize rules, and make the sport more appealing to the public? Oh, and also boost equipment sales, because let's be real, Wanamaker, well, he owns sporting goods stores and saw dollar signs in his plan. He pitched the idea to some of the best golf professionals of the time, including Walter Hagen, Francis Umay, and James Maiden. They all loved it. And just like that, the biggest names in American golf were sitting at the table and nodding their heads. At that moment, they were probably thinking, hey, maybe we won't have to rely on tips from rich country club members just to make a living anymore. And in the blink of an eye, the Professional Golfers Association of America was born. The mission was simple: grow the game, help professional golfers actually earn a living, and bring some structure to the sport. And they wasted no time getting to work. As you can imagine, the first order of business was to create a championship tournament that would serve as the crown jewel of the new organization. And so, the PGA Championship was planned for later that year, in October 1916, at Sewanoi Country Club in Bronxville, New York. But it wasn't your typical stroke play tournament like you see today. No, this was match play, a brutal head-to-head format where golfers went one-on-one, with the winner moving on and the loser packing his bags. It was a format that really separated the mentally tough from the pretenders. The first ever PGA Championship featured 32 golfers, all handpicked by the PGA because they wanted the best of the best competing. And in case you're wondering, no, there were no amateurs allowed. It was a tournament for professionals only. And when I say professionals, I mean guys who made a living off the game, not just weekend warriors with trust funds. Jim Barnes, a tall and lanky Englishman who had already made a name for himself in American golf, ended up winning that first PGA Championship. He cruised through the competition, and in the final match, he absolutely dominated Jock Hutchinson, another well-respected player. But how much was the prize money at the time? Well, Barnes took home a whopping $500 for his efforts. Hard to believe, right? Subscribe for more incredible golf stories. Yeah, I know it doesn't sound like much today, but in 1916, that was a pretty nice payday. And let's not forget the golden medal he received, which was donated by none other than Rodman Wanamaker himself. I mean, this guy wasn't just the mastermind behind the PGA, he was putting up the prizes too. But not everyone was thrilled about this new professional golf association. See, golf had always been seen as the gentleman's game, dominated by wealthy amateurs who played for the love of the sport, not for money. So the idea of professional golfers, guys who actually played for a paycheck, was looked down upon in some circles. Many of the elite country clubs weren't exactly rolling out the red carpet for the PGA, and there was plenty of resistance from those who wanted to keep golf an exclusive, aristocratic pastime. There were also some early controversies over the rules. The PGA wanted to make the game more competitive and standardized, but that didn't sit well with everyone. Some traditionalists didn't like the idea of the PGA taking control of the sport, fearing that it would take power away from clubs and amateur organizations. But the PGA, they weren't backing down. They pushed for more consistent tournament structures, fairer prize distributions, and better treatment for professional golfers. Simply put, They were determined to change the game, whether the old guard liked it or not, but the organizers of those early PGA tournaments didn't have it all figured out. Far from it, actually. They had to improvise along the way. For example, the first few PGA championships didn't even have a standard qualification process. They just invited who they thought were the best players at the time. Also, there were no massive crowds or TV cameras back then. The galleries were small and mostly made up of club members and a few die-hard golf fans. There were no multi-million-dollar endorsement deals and no flashy sponsorships either. It was just a bunch of guys grinding it out for prize money that was enough to pay the bills, but nowhere near what the pros made today. But that's not all, as the PGA also had to deal with the challenge of World War I. Yeah, bombs were about to go off, and golf was the last thing anyone was thinking about. Not long after the PGA was founded, the world was thrown into chaos, and many professional golfers either enlisted in the army or had their careers put on hold. Jim Barnes, the first PGA champion, wasn't even able to defend his title in 1917 or 1918 because the tournament was cancelled due to the war. But when it finally resumed in 1919, Barnes came back and showed the world what a badass he was by winning again. This cemented his place as one of golf's early legends. But despite the challenges, the PGA kept growing. More tournaments were added, membership increased, and professional golfers finally started getting the recognition they deserved. So, what started as a simple lunch meeting had turned into something much bigger. And by the 1920s, the PGA was firmly established as the governing body for professional golf in America, and the sport was never the same again. Want to hear more? Subscribe now. So, the next time you watch a PGA event, just remember that it all started with a department store owner, a fancy lunch, and a bunch of golfers who just wanted a fair shot at making a living. And if you think golf is intense now, imagine playing in an era where you had to win a tournament just to afford your next meal. That's the kind of grit that built the PGA. But fast forward to 1968, and the world of professional golf had become like a crowded elevator. There were too many egos and not enough space to fit them all in. During this time, the PGA of America was trying to juggle both club pros, who were basically the friendly neighborhood golf teachers running country clubs, and the touring pros, who were traveling the world and actually making the game famous. It was like trying to run a coffee shop and a global franchise, both at the same time. Eventually, someone in the room must have said, "Yeah, this isn't working," and so they decided to split. The club pros kept the PGA of America, and the touring pros went off and formed what we now know as the PGA Tour. Think of it like a rock band breaking up. The PGA of America was like the lead singer who wanted to stay home and make acoustic ballads, while the PGA Tour was the guitarist who wanted to go on world tours and sell out stadiums. Same music, but different management. And just like with most breakups, there was a little drama, some tension, and a whole lot of "we'll see who does better." Well, you already guessed it, the PGA Tour ended up becoming the global superstar of the two. So, with the PGA Tour now officially its own thing, it started organizing events strictly for professional golfers, and things took off like crazy. It was now loaded with big-time sponsors, television deals, and of course, some of the most legendary players the sport had ever seen. I'm talking about the likes of Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, and Gary Player, also known as the Big Three. I mean, these guys weren't just playing golf, they were turning it into a spectacle. For real, if the PGA Tour was a movie, they were the A-list stars, making golf look cooler than it had ever been. Then came the 1980s and 90s, and the PGA Tour was growing even bigger. But nothing, and I mean nothing, compares to what happened in 1996. That's when a 20-year-old kid with a red shirt and an iron grip on the sport showed up and completely flipped the script. Yes, we're talking about Tiger Woods, arguably the greatest golfer in history. Tiger didn't just play golf, he dominated it and made the sport more popular than ever, bringing in new fans, new sponsors, and most importantly, a whole lot of money. And suddenly, golfers weren't just athletes, they were million-dollar superstars with Lamborghinis. Tiger was winning majors left and right, breaking records like they were made of glass, and pulling off shots that made people's jaw drop. His impact was so huge that even people who'd never picked up a golf club knew who he was. Of course, before Tiger, golf was doing fine, but after Tiger, the prize money exploded. Winning a PGA Tour event used to be like winning a really nice bonus check. But once Tiger stepped into the woods, you could buy a mansion with just one victory. Sponsors threw money at tournaments, TV networks, they couldn't get enough, and golf courses around the world saw a massive boom in new players. Yeah, the PGA Tour was living the dream. They were doing way better than the PGA of America, and there was no other golfing association that could bother them. Or so they thought, because in 2022, something happened that shook the golf world like an earthquake. LIV Golf was born, and the PGA Tour was put on high alert. And in case you've been living under a rock, LIV Golf is the new league funded by Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund. And by funded, I mean they have so much money, they could probably buy the moon if they wanted to. They started throwing out contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars and lured PGA stars away faster than any buffet line at a golf club. Players like Phil Mickelson, Dustin Johnson, and Brooks Koepka, they all made the jump, and the PGA Tour was not happy. It was basically golf's version of a civil war, and the PGA Tour scrambled to keep its players. If they were to compete with LIV Golf, they had no choice but to increase prize money. And to make a strong point, the PGA Tour also tried to block defectors from coming back. But LIV Golf, they didn't care. They just kept handing out bigger paychecks, and it got so bad that lawsuits started flying, and fans were split down the middle. Some loved the idea of LIV shaking up the game, while others thought it was ruining the tradition of the sport. So, where does all this chaos leave the PGA Tour now? Well, they're still standing strong. Sure, they lost a few players, but let's be honest, there are always new stars ready to take their place. Rory McIlroy, Scottie Scheffler, Jon Rahm, and a new wave of young talent, they're all keeping things competitive. So, despite the drama, the PGA Tour remains the biggest stage in professional golf. But thanks to stiff competition from LIV Golf, the PGA Tour has had to adapt more than ever. They've changed up their tournament structures, boosted prize money, and made sure that the best players, well, they're sticking around. Fans now get better TV coverage, behind-the-scenes access, and new ways to engage with the sport. And let's not forget about the rise of social media, where players are now more accessible than ever. Yeah, gone are the days when golf was just about guys in polo shirts quietly playing on TV. Now we've got viral clips, online debates, and golf personalities that feel larger than life. Looking ahead, the future of the PGA Tour, well, it's still being written. In fact, talks about a merger with LIV Golf, they're happening, but no one knows exactly how that will play out. Will they find a way to coexist, or will the battle for golf's biggest names continue? One thing's for sure though, the PGA Tour has faced a lot over the years, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. If you like this video, click the subscribe.